What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and I just got done playing 4 hours of the Fallout 76 beta, and honestly, I got a lot to say about it. This is a very different kind of beta because the developers themselves have actually said that this is the full game. Every single thing that's going to be in the final experience is already here, except for the microtransactions. And so in my 4 hours, I tried to run everywhere, team up with people, kill some players, and build some stuff just to see what every single aspect of this game is going to roughly play like. And I have to say that right up front, it's very similar to other Fallout games. Thankfully, the changes they've made, like implementing multiplayer, don't seem to impede the moment-to-moment action. You're still going to be shooting super monsters and trying to wander around collecting supplies to upgrade your gear. But the biggest change is, of course, the fact that this is multiplayer only. You cannot play this by yourself, even if you really want to. I actually tried that. For a long time, when I first landed on this map, I wanted to just try and go to the outer limits and not run into other players, but I found it to be basically impossible. So the entire game runs on a server system where there will be roughly 20 players at any one time just exploring the countryside with you. So even if you try not to bump into them, you're gonna keep coming across them over and over again, simply because even though this area is really big, people are gonna be gravitating towards the main quest hubs no matter what. So if you're trying to loot a house or construct a base, you're probably going to be tripping over somebody. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I did find myself a little bit let down that this doesn't even allow the slightest amount of solo play. The developers claim that this is something that you could play on your own if you wanted, but that's really not the case. At all times, I was constantly reminded about the fact that this is an online-only game, and another part of that is the fact that you're never going to see an NPC. There's not really any quest givers or anything like that that lets you kind of sink into the illusion of the fact that this is a normal Fallout world. This is by far the biggest drawback of the entire game, because in general, I think that Bethesda has some of the best story writers. They managed to make all sorts of little changes and tweaks and tiny little moments that make it where you feel like you're actually on this planet and seeing the people's struggles. Whereas here, the fact that I'm only going to be seeing a guy named Your Mom 420 and a dude named Headshot 2 Dope, you can't really get into the mindset of the fact that this is an actual place with actual struggles. Some of the quests, I think, are trying to make it seem more alive, though. Like, at one point, I found this little holotape that played the story about this lady who had gone into a vault as a little girl, but without her parents, and then, as a grown-up, she managed to escape, but when she went back to her home, unfortunately, they had passed away, and she decided to record a tape talking about the fact that she grew up in this safe place and ended up having a family of her own, but never got to see her parents again. They were long dead by the time she escaped. And that's cool, but it sort of falls apart because it doesn't really have that punch. Hearing these tales is really moving, but without actually ever seeing somebody, it all feels a little bit like you're just reading a fictional tale instead of believing that it in some part plays a role in this world. Now, let's move on to something else, which is the fact that this game is very glitchy. Now, this is a beta, of course, so there's going to be some problems, but really, I would say that almost everywhere I went, I ran into glitches. Some of them were minor, things like a body falling through the world or voice chat not operating, even though I can see people's little talk sign turning on. There was also stuff like the fact that I had this guy in my party for a while. I eventually tried to kick him out, but it wouldn't let me. He literally just stuck to the party and I could not remove him, even when I eventually tried to actually kick him out so that I could shoot him. That kind of stuff is very distracting because it makes it where the social aspect of this game, which is supposed to be the biggest appeal to it, is usually the most glitchy. I mean, even when it comes to just general PvP, I noticed that there is a lot of lag on the server, where in the end, when I was trying to shoot somebody, occasionally I'd pull the trigger and had clearly missed my shot, but it somehow hit them anyways. Now, part of this is because of the V.A.T.S system. Now, in previous Fallouts, obviously the way that worked is time would stop and allow you to pick out specific body parts to strike, whereas here, it's a lot more like an auto-lock system, allowing you to run around and shoot at somebody just by picking a particular limb. It doesn't work great, but in certain circumstances, like late at night when it's pitch dark, or in PvP when you're trying to pick out a target while running around, it's semi-useful. I'd say that V.A.T.S at this point is more for trying to pick off tiny targets or just when you don't have the best visibility. I guess the glitches that really annoyed me the most were the times where things just completely fell apart. At one point, I was actually running for my life from a pack of very high-level wolves, and I was actually terrified. This was the first time where my pulse was actually pounding and I could feel this real tension building up. But when I stepped on this rock, for some reason I became invisible. They literally could not see me, and so they just stood there as I actually lined up a shot and picked them off one by one. It gave me a ton of experience and a ton of loot, but it also completely ruined a moment that otherwise would have been epic. Let's talk about leveling up. This is something that feels a little bit bizarre, but I think is probably the most brilliant part of this game overall, because it's very different, but very functional. So in a typical game, obviously, by leveling up, you're going to get more health, more armor, or more damage. In Fallout 76, what you get instead are cards. Now, this is very peculiar, but it works pretty well once you get used to it. Basically, every couple levels you get a giant pack of them, and when you open it up, it's a bunch of random perks. No matter what, every level you're going to pick one of them though. So basically, say like you pick Charisma, then you're going to get a bunch of buffs that'll let you actually do stuff like help out your teammates, increase everybody's damage, or maybe make it where you'll get a better deal at vendors. Or you could do something like choose Strength and you'll get bonuses that'll make it where you can take more damage or everybody around you can carry more stuff. Now the cool part about these is that they're stackable. So if you get multiple Strength bonuses, you can put them on top of each other to make it where, in my case, I actually got a bunch of stuff about luck, and I made it where if I opened up a chest that had healing items in it, then I could have a chance to have extra ones spawn, or more bullets, or more health. Each of these is really useful, especially because this definitely has a more survival focus to it. So in case you've never seen any of the trailers, the biggest difference, other than the fact that this is online, is the fact that you're constantly having to worry about your hunger and your thirst. You can't just run around like freaking Rambo, you actually need to worry about keeping yourself alive. This is thankfully not annoying in the slightest. I was actually very afraid of the fact that you were going to be constantly searching for water, or constantly trying to find another bite to eat, or you'd starve to death, and this is not the case whatsoever. There is always something nearby that you can consume to keep yourself moving, and it actually makes it where you kind of just pick it up subconsciously. At this point, after playing 4 hours of it, I was very much in the habit of constantly trying to purify water and cook food whenever I was near a bonfire. That way I could always be ready for the next time I was a little bit peckish. Now, the last thing we really need to go into is the base building, because this is something I did not particularly care for in Fallout 4, because there it felt a little bit intrusive. Trying to gather up different supplies and construct a huge fortress just to get a couple extra achievements, it wasn't really my cup of tea, whereas here it seems to make a little bit more sense. So essentially, you go to a place and can drop this little tiny machine called camp, and from here, you're able to build the biggest base you can with whatever materials you have. So get a bunch of wood and stuff, you can make a giant sniper tower like I'm doing here, or get a bunch of electric cables and cybernetics and you can put in defensive turrets or electric wiring. And overall, it's pretty cool. I like it. The fact that I could really, if I wanted, take over an entire city to myself is rather unique, and it makes it where, if I want, I can have this extra edge in PvP. I think all this stuff really fits together nicely, but I'm a little bit worried about the nukes. So during my 4 hours here, I wasn't able to actually get any nuke codes, so I didn't get to see any of those massive explosions. But I do worry about the fact that if you're able to just wipe out an entire section of the map, is it going to completely kill you? Is it going to destroy your base? Is it going to make it where you're constantly having to regather materials? These are worries in my mind, because I don't want to be perpetually redoing stuff just in an effort to keep up with my own completed content. I will say that so far, I definitely died a couple times during this beta, and it's not really a big issue. So as soon as you drop dead, you have a choice of trying to call out for help, so if anybody's nearby, they can revive you with a stim pack, or if you want, you can just basically revive at a nearby point. You spin caps to respawn at a nearby city or a place you've recently visited, and it's not really cumbersome. It's very, very streamlined, and basically you just run back to your own dead body, and all of your items are in a nice little paper sack. If you manage to kill somebody in PvP, you can loot their sack. It's all very nice, but I still don't know if this is a good game overall. I guess the biggest flaw in general is the fact that I really don't know if I want to go back and play it right now. I mean, there's not really that sense of urgency. I really have no connection to this world in the way that I have previous Bethesda projects. This isn't Skyrim, this isn't Fallout. It's not really trying to pull me into this giant struggle. Instead, it just feels like a little tiny mod that's supposed to be interesting and will be something fun to maybe tinker with on the weekends with friends. But what did you think about it? Did you get a chance to play this beta, and are you going to try and get into one of the future ones? What did you think about it, and is this something you'd be into? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.